Hi everyone, in this video I'll be showing you how you can make perfect siopao completely from scratch. I'll be showing you how to make the dough, the filling, and the sauce so you can experience what it's like to have the best siopao in the world. If you aren't familiar with siopao, it is a steamed bun filled with sweet and savory meat originating from the Philippines. If you're tired of settling for those pre-made frozen siopaos that you find in the grocery store and are craving a fresh homemade siopao, then I encourage you to stick around for the rest of the video because making siopao is easier than you might think. Let's begin. To make the filling, begin by adding 2 tablespoons or 30 grams of vegetable oil in a large pot over medium-high heat. Once the oil starts to shimmer, add in 1 medium yellow onion diced, followed by a large pinch of salt. Stir occasionally until the onions have become translucent, then add 3 large cloves of minced garlic and continue stirring frequently until the garlic is browned. Once your garlic is browned, add in 2 pounds or 1 kilogram of boneless chicken thighs that has been trimmed and been cut into 1-inch cubes. Season generously with freshly ground black pepper and continue cooking on high heat until all the juices from the chicken have evaporated. Scrape down the sides of the pot as needed to prevent any of the fond from burning. When your fond is in danger of burning, add in 60 grams or a quarter cup of soy sauce. I'm using the Special Swan brand, followed by 2 cups or 480 milliliters of water. Using a wooden spoon, scrape the sides and bottom of the pot to deglaze all the fond that has formed. All this fond will add lots of flavor to our filling. Once all the fond has been deglazed, add in 72 grams or 6 tablespoons of dark brown sugar, an additional cup or 240 milliliters of water, 4 bay leaves, and 2 star anise. Bring to a boil, then reduce the heat to medium-low to maintain a simmer. After 45 minutes of simmering, mix in a cornstarch slurry made up of 2 teaspoons of cornstarch plus 2 tablespoons of water. After 15 minutes of additional simmering, remove the bay leaves and star anise. Raise the heat to medium-high and use the back of a wooden spoon to press down on the chicken to break it into shreds. We want to shred about 85% of the chicken. Continue cooking until almost all of the water has boiled off and the filling is dry. Taste for salt and adjust if necessary, but keep in mind that we'll be making a sauce that is high in sodium. When the filling is finished cooking, transfer it to a bowl and set it aside to cool while we make the dough. Now, I'm sure we've all been in the scenario where we tried following a dough recipe and things just didn't end up working out the way they were supposed to. The dough ended up either being too wet or too dry. By using scale to get precise measurements, we can create the perfect batch of dough every time. The dough's hydration percentage is super important, and even a couple tablespoons of extra water or flour is enough to throw things off. And with all of that in mind, let's start making the dough. In a large bowl, add 8 1/3 cups or 1,000 grams of all-purpose flour and 1 tablespoon or 15 grams of baking powder. Give that a mix until well combined and then set aside. In an extra large mixing bowl, add 2 1/3 cups or 570 grams of water, a 7/8 cup or 170 grams of granulated sugar, and 3.5 teaspoons or 22 grams of fine salt. Give it a quick stir to dissolve some of the sugar and salt, then add in 1.5 teaspoons or 14 grams of instant dry yeast. Stir again, and lastly, add in your baking powder and flour mixture. Start stirring everything together using a silicone spatula. When all the flour has been hydrated and you've mixed the best you can using a silicone spatula, begin kneading the dough by lightly wetting your hands, then go around the edge of the bowl, pulling up on the dough and folding it on top of itself. Continue doing this until you no longer feel any dry bits of flour, and don't worry about developing the gluten at this stage. When your dough is homogeneous, cover it and leave it to rest for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, use a wet hand to scrape your dough out of the bowl onto a lightly floured work surface. Lightly wet your hands and begin kneading the dough. You can use whatever kneading method you feel most comfortable with, but I found that using my right hand to stretch the dough and my left hand to help rotate the dough to be quite effective when working with large pieces of dough such as this one. Wet your hands as needed if the dough is feeling a little too sticky. All of the sugar in the dough makes it a little difficult to handle, but as long as you move quickly, you should be able to handle the stickiness of the dough. Expect this to be quite the workout. It took me around 10 minutes of kneading to develop the gluten in the dough. To see if you have sufficient gluten development, Pull on a small section of the dough and try to stretch it thin. If it tears before you can stretch it thin, continue kneading, but if your dough passes the test, you can shape it into a ball and then cover with a bowl and leave it to rest for another 15 minutes. After the second 15-minute rest, get out your room temperature butter and spread it evenly across the top of the dough. Then begin working the butter into the dough by squeezing it with your hands. The dough may come apart on you as you work the butter in, but don't worry, just continue squeezing the dough until it all comes together again. Once the butter has been fully worked into the dough, it is time to shape it into a tight ball. Pick up the dough from the middle, stretch it, and fold the ends underneath. Rotate the dough 90 degrees and repeat this step 2 or 3 times to build up a little bit of tension on the dough surface. Then start shaping the dough into a ball, but be careful because you can end up tearing the dough surface like I did. If you end up tearing the dough surface, just let it rest for 5 minutes. Pick it up from the middle to stretch and fold it the same as before. Then shape it into a ball again to reform the smooth surface. Place your dough ball into a greased bowl, then cover and leave it to proof for 2 hours or until it has doubled in size. Once your dough has doubled in size, use a wet hand to release the dough from the sides of the bowl, punch it down to degas it, then remove it from the bowl and place it onto a lightly floured work surface with the smooth side facing up. Form your dough into a large rectangle by pulling on the sides. Using a bench scraper, divide your dough into strips that are about 1.5 to 2 inches thick. Now we are going to pre-shape our dough into balls. Take one of the ends of your dough strips and begin tucking it under itself. You want to keep the smooth side of the dough on the outside. When you think you've gathered enough dough, wrap your pointer finger and thumb around the dough and close them to seal off the dough. Using a scale, weigh your dough ball. This recipe makes 12 dough balls weighing around 150 grams each. If you find yourself having too much dough, just wrap your fingers around the base of the dough ball and pinch it off the same as before. After weighing your dough ball, place it onto a clean area of your work surface that is without flour. Begin shaping it into a tight sphere, then place it onto a lightly floured baking tray, keeping track of which balls you made first. Take any small pieces of dough and tuck them underneath your dough strip and begin forming the ball just the same as before. Once 15 minutes have passed since you formed your first dough ball, begin sprinkling a small amount of flour over your dough balls. Spread the flour evenly by gently rubbing the surface of the dough. It's finally time to start making the buns. Start with the first dough ball you made and stretch it into a disc roughly the size of your palm. Be careful not to stretch the middle of the dough too thin. Then place it smooth side down onto a lightly floured work surface and stretch the dough out a little more using your hands. Then place a spoonful of your filling in the center of the dough. I found 60 to 70 grams of filling to be a good amount. Pull on an edge of the dough and stretch it partway across your meat. Using quick movements will help you stretch the edge of the dough. Then go around the dough, pinching the edge, stretching it, and bringing it together to the other hand. Continue doing this until you've made it all the way around. If you feel like your filling is about to fall out, just use your thumb to knock it back in. After you made it all the way around, seal your dough by pinching everything together. After making sure that the bottom of your dough is sealed, flip your dough over and knock off any excess flour. Then place it on a square sheet of parchment paper and set aside while you make the rest of your buns. After you made about 3 or 4 buns, begin placing them inside your steamer basket. Make sure that there's enough room for the buns to expand as they cook. My steamer basket has a diameter of 14 inches, so I can comfortably fit 4 buns in mine. Your basket might not be as large, so you can either make smaller buns or just simply fill your basket with less buns. After arranging your buns, place your steamer basket over your pot of boiling water, cover with a lid, and leave to steam for 16 to 18 minutes or until the dough is cooked through. After the buns are finished steaming, remove your lid carefully to avoid dripping any water all over the buns. Remove your buns by using a spatula to lift them out and then place them onto a plate. Between batches, wipe down your basket with a kitchen towel to dry up any water that may have accumulated. And here's your reward for an entire afternoon or evening of hard work: 4 beautifully steamed buns. Now while they can be perfectly enjoyed now, I think that they taste even better with the sauce. To make the sauce, place a small sauce pot over medium heat and add half a cup or 120 milliliters of water, 3 tablespoons or 45 grams of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon or 15 grams of oyster sauce, 5 tablespoons or 60 grams of dark brown sugar, and a dash of Chinese 5-spice. Give that a mix and then bring to a boil. Once your sauce has reached a boil, mix in a cornstarch slurry made up of 1 tablespoon of cornstarch plus 3 tablespoons of water. Once the mixture has returned to a boil, turn off the heat and your sauce is ready. If you taste the sauce on its own, it might seem like it's a little too sweet, but it really does complement the siopao perfectly. The light and fluffy steamed bun, in combination with the sweet and savory meat filling, is incredible. There are also a couple other things that you can do differently with the filling. You can substitute the chicken thigh for pork shoulder, and you can add a slice of hard-boiled egg to the filling as well. So unless you had a large group of people over for dinner, you probably have a decent amount of siopaos left over. Just wait for any leftover siopao to cool down to room temperature, then you can place them in a Ziploc bag and they are ready for the freezer. And now, whenever you feel like you're craving a siopao, you can reheat it by warming it up in the microwave for about 1.5 minutes to 1:45 minutes. And your siopao will be just as good as when you first steamed it. Congratulations, you have made it all the way to the end of the video. That is going to wrap it up for me, and I would like to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and if you want to see more videos like this one, please leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.